Hello everyone, my name is Caesar and we're going to start another video. On this occasion, we're going to start with the topic of why I chose to study political sciences instead of any other career. So this will be the topic of this video. So please subscribe, follow the channel and share, and also a comment below what you think about this video, and we'll see at the end how it goes. All right, so let's start with the reasons why I chose to study political sciences. So first of all, we have to get some context into kind of my history. First of all, it has to be with, the financial aspect of the career, right? Whether the studies will be something that you will get into a job right away or something that you're doing because you're passionate about it and want to kind of get into it and start. So those reasons weigh a lot when choosing a career. So in my case, I started kind of not knowing what I wanted to do. So I kind of studied a little bit of this here, another thing over there, whether it was at a polytechnic or whether it was just some kind of, service industry kind of thing, right? Even entertainment, right? So maybe my path was not the traditional one. So it took me a long time to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And in the end, of course, I fell with political science. So in my case was because I kind of, took me a long time to realize what I really wanted to do. So you could say it was my passion, or it was also an aha moment, right? You kind of see things a bit more clearly and things make sense. So it took me quite a bit of time, right, for me to find that out. And eventually I kind of, came to the realization that I kind of wanted to know how the world works, why the world is the way it is. And political sciences is one of the fields where you can find that out, right? So it has to do a lot about, the structures of governments, the rules, regulations, how countries behave with each other, the history of it all, right? There's some things that, that take a long time to change, a long time to kind of be understood, and also a long time to be resolved, like wars and things like that, right? So that was my kind of, reason why I chose this field is because I wanted to learn about, how the world works and what we could do about it, right? Another reason why I chose to study political science is because I myself come from a third world country, developing country, and also that also weighed a lot, in my decision because, sometimes you are, of course, exposed to still a lot of the things that happen back home, and you want to know, why things are like that and what can you do about it, or at least learn why things are the way they are. So that is also one of the reasons, because I wanted to find solutions or maybe finding a new perspective or another way of doing things, right? Also, it's very funny, but over time, I kind of realized that everything comes down to politics, right? When people are talking about sports, about arts, about movies, about, you name it, anything, even cooking, right? Everything has to do about politics, It's funny because you're looking at somebody talk about sports or maybe an entertainer, and all of a sudden they shift toward politics, right? That is kind of one of the reasons why, this is very relevant. And I thought that it was very important, to learn about this and to kind of understand, the way things are. So one of the things that also is very kind of, useful to know is things that are in the media are also, in the news, debates about being left, being right wing, right? Anywhere in the world. It's not just the States, it's not just Canada, it's not just, a particular country. That is something that prevails over the whole world, whether you are leaning towards one ideology or the other. And also, I'm going to talk about ideologies as well in the future, but let's just stay on topic right now. Why I chose to study political science is because I thought those things are very relevant and very important to know about. And also, it has to do a lot about, who's making the decisions, what decisions are being made, right? Whether it's public measures, whether it's, vaccines, whether it's for basic health provision, all of that has to do with a government rule and regulation and decisions that are taking place. So who makes those decisions? Why do we make those decisions? What do we spend our money on as a country? That is also very important. And also, one of the main reasons also why I studied political science is because I found it very interesting. One of the ways I found it interesting is through the literature. So when you study political science, you will have to take some classes that will give you the background on understanding politics. And one of those classes will be something, like a political thought, right? So in political thought, you will learn about, the initiations, the start of politics, whether it was in ancient Greece or the Romans or before that. So for example, right? you will learn about Plato, right? So Plato is the father of politics. So in Plato, this is just a symposium, but there's many other kind of, works of Plato. And, when I started reading that, I was kind of, my mind kind of was blown away with all the, the ideas, the exchange, the concepts that you learn in this kind of, introductory readings. And that kind of opened my mind to so many things, right? Something like the Prince, Machiavelli, right? Like on this book, you learn about, the ins and outs of, how a real government kind of, works, right? Whether you agree with it or not, when people are in power, how to stay in power, how to gain power. One of the very influential books in the last 20 years is this one here, is Why Nations Fail, right? So this book, by Acemoglu and Robinson, which is very references. Whenever you will read an article, this book will also be very referenced, right? And I believe they also won a Nobel Prize, these guys, in the last year or so. So very relevant. I found it also very interesting that after I decided to study this field, is that in your classes, you may have some professors, some people that are actually researchers, and even some people who have been in politics already and have kind of, been part of history. In my experience, I started with kind of, this book that is, the Introduction to Government and Politics in Canada. So, all of these things are very important while you are being influenced by all these people who are very knowledgeable. You will be influenced like that by some of your professors and even some of the students. Some of the students that will be in your class as well, they will run for office, they will run, in elections, right? So that's also interesting, how they develop and how, they kind of will kind of carry out their path. And also, you can kind of look into how you will also do your path in politics, whether it's kind of, being in public service, in teaching, or even kind of, in research. So that is also one of the reasons why I kind of, stayed also in this field, and I found it very rewarding. Another reason why I studied political science is because you can keep appraised, you can keep kind of informed and understand what's going on in the news, in the world. When elections come by, you're giving a lot of terms and jargon, right, in things of kind of, how people are elected, having a prime minister, not a president, being a federalist kind of, country, right, with different provinces and different kind of, independent kind of, institutions. So that is also all of these things that, you kind of get a better idea, when you study political science. Being in the program, it will push you. It will kind of make you work with your peers to come with research, that you might not do on your own, do as a group, individually, or maybe even, have to present to the class and things like that, and to also understand what you're reading, what you're studying. So that is why this field for me was very interesting, and it taught me a lot. And I can tell you about also my kind of activity in politics and all of that, in a future video, but I just wanted to let you know about, the reasons why I chose to study this field and why I stayed in it, right? So that is what I wanted to transmit to you. Also, in conclusion, well, I want you to maybe ask, what do you think about that? What do you think about this field? Do you have any questions? Do you have any things that maybe you're curious about? Maybe you want to learn something more. So let me know what you think about all that. Leave me your comments, share this video, like the video as well on YouTube. And well, thank you again for being here. My name is Cesar, and we're going to just continue with more videos on this field. So again, I wish you a very good year, and we'll see you next time, and you take care. Okay, see ya. Bye-bye.